Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Well, as you all know, we are going to have the next Democratic governor of South Dakota in a couple months. And of course, when you have a Democratic governor, you got to have a Democratic lieutenant governor, and we've got her here today to talk to you, Michelle Lavallee.
There is a prairie fire of bipartisan support smoldering across the plains of South Dakota. Huh? Yeah? That was our invitation for a very successful fundraiser we just had at the Knutson's house. And we had 200 people. And for the host, there was 13 Republicans, 12 Democrats, and 4 independents. Right? Pretty darn good, actually, to have 200 people. We did indeed light those flames of bipartisan support, and we're going to keep on doing it. So thank you so much for inviting me today, Tom. And I have to say, I really appreciate meeting a bedrock of support with all of the Democrats. I've been doing that the last 2 days in Rapid City, meeting with the Democratic leadership and the Democratic candidates. And I got to tell you, in my whole professional career in the corporate world, I've never had so many people come up to me and say, thank you for running, thank you for putting yourself out. It's humbling, and I so appreciate it. Before I get going, I do want to recognize that we have the whole Sutton stampede here, as we call them. We have Susie Jones-Pranger, who leads the Sutton campaign. She's in the back. Is our Director of Communications. She's here. They're here to make sure I don't say anything wrong. So I'm very nervous. Seth Miller came up, and he is our Director of Outreach. I think he ran back to the office. And we have a couple of great interns, Briggs and Ben. So thanks for coming out, you guys, to be here to support us today. So today, I know that people want to know a little bit about me, why I joined the campaign, why I switched parties. And I want to give you a little bit of a campaign. I heard you guys aren't shy. And I heard you want to ask a lot of questions. You don't have a problem asking questions, which I absolutely love. So I just want to tell you, I started out, I was born outside of Huron. Actually, it was really Burdett, which is a suburb of Tulare, which is a suburb of Redfield, which I guess is a suburb of what, Huron? So that's the closest that we get. But I was born on our family's homestead, and really did go to a one-room country schoolhouse and rode the horse. I was 5 of 7 kids. A lot of girls in that family. Poor dad. Every time one of us got married, he sold another cow. For me, he sold 2 cows. But anyway, we did move when I was about 4, just a couple miles outside of here. And my dad ran the sale barn, Bales Continental Commission Company. My mom ran the chuck wagon. And if you weren't out in the yard sorting cattle, you were in the restaurant doing dishes, or you were actually serving food and waiting on farmers and ranchers for that nickel tip. That was a good one, under the coffee cup. So I had a wonderful childhood, but we went to work with our folks because that's what we did. We had a cattle ranch and a farming operation. So that was one thing that attracted me to Billy too, is our childhoods were very, very similar. My dad's name was Bud, and you didn't look at Bud without smiling. He looked like the last of the Marlboro men. He died just 2 years ago at the age of 91, and he had that true cowboy grit that you see in Billy Sutton. I went to Huron High School and then went away at USD for a year, and then met a boy and left to seek my fortune. And so we moved, mostly for my husband's career, many places across the country, but came back home about 20 years ago and went to work for Northwestern Energy. I was the Vice President of Customer Solutions. Then was recruited to go to the University of South Dakota, and I went as the Chief Marketing Officer, and then also had Vice President of Student Affairs. So all the departments except actually academics and athletics. But we rebranded the school with the UDOT campaign. And it was a lot of fun. Loved being there, loved working for Jim Abbott. And then I was recruited to go to Avera to kind of strengthen their brand and to help them with market share and do a lot of innovation within the Avera system. And then Raven recruited me to be their global leader of sales and marketing. So had 70 men reported to me, I think in 67 different countries, if I've got that right. So it was quite an experience for a couple of years there. And then I did my own company, the Lavallee Group, and I go into companies and help them, the executives, with their vision, determining their vision, and then helping the executives and really be accountable for what they said they were going to do. Go back each quarter, help them with their strategic plan, and keep them on track. So I've had a broad-based background. I went to school at Northwestern in Chicago. I had my undergraduate degrees in communication. Then I went back and got an MBA. So I think that's one of the things that Billy and I had a lot of fun talking about was my background and what I could bring to his already strong ticket. I met Billy about 2 years ago. He came to speak to our downtown Sioux Falls Rotary Club. I was the president of the club. We invited him as the minority leader and Mark Mickelson as I guess, the majority leader, right? They too did a wonderful update on the legislative session. And there was something about this guy, and I watched him with his whole family back there, and he just had this positive energy and just so open and smart and just really an appealing character. People went over to him. He's got this, you know, he's got that aura or that attracts people to want to talk to Billy. And so we stayed in touch a bit, and then I followed his campaign a bit, and then I ran into him at the South Dakota Hall of Fame almost a year ago now. And he wheels over, and somebody introduces him again, and he says, "Would you ever consider going into politics?" Oh my gosh. Honestly, I never thought about that in my life. I always felt like I could do more good outside of politics by really helping, especially back in South Dakota, by creating jobs and building a stronger corporate world and corporate positions that I was in. So I actually was surprised but flattered and talked more, and we met throughout the last few months, and I would bring Billy into one of the companies in town, and he would talk, and the executives would question him on everything like we do in politics. And I watched that guy. I watched him to be able to handle every question that came his way. And I would call him back the next day and talk to the company and ask, "What'd you think of Billy?" And they'd say, every time, he earned my vote. And it didn't matter if they were a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. He earned my vote. And what Billy Sutton did later is he called and asked him for money. And they respected that too, and they all wrote checks. I gotta tell you, I've never seen anybody like Billy Sutton campaign or raise money, because he will stay on that phone until he raises his dollar for the day, and it's a very goal-driven, and that's what we need. We need those kinds of dollars to win in South Dakota. So as I got to know Billy and I watched him interact, and it got down to that time when he said, "No, I really do want you to join the ticket," I had to really think about that. And he said, "No, you can stay Republican and I'll be a Democrat, and we're going to try this cross-party bipartisan approach," because maybe that's what South Dakota needs, is that bipartisan approach. But you know what we found out is would have been tough to do. There's two cases, I think, of precedent where people have tried to do that before, right? I was happy to change my party to be a Democrat, because you know what happens? I really, in my adult life, I've been working really hard. We've been moving, we've been raising families. I was taking care of my elderly parents. You don't stop and assess your political beliefs. And this made me stop and assess my political beliefs. And you know what I found? I didn't really know why I was a Republican. I guess maybe because my husband was. But the people I voted for were almost always the Republican candidates. I probably have met a number of you. I've done, I don't know how many fundraisers for Stephanie Herseth at my house. Power of the Purse was what we were known for. And Tom Daschle. Tom Daschle was a good friend of ours, and my son worked for him for 2 years in Washington. I have to say, I have firmly never worn my party affiliation on my sleeve. I probably didn't think about it the way that I should have. But I'll tell you something, I'm glad that I did now. I wouldn't go back to the other side. That's what folks asked me in Rapid yesterday. I truly believe that a moderate Republican and a moderate Democrat, they're not different. They might be in Chicago or New York or Philadelphia, but they're not in South Dakota. And I came to realize that we are so much more alike than we are different. And I gotta tell you, all my friends are the same. They believe in what we believe in. And Billy's platform, where he talks about education and healthcare and not leaving others behind. I mean, I've been a fiscal conservative, but I've also always believed in the moderate side and always thought about helping other people and not leaving those behind. So that was not hard for me to change my political party. And I'm glad I did. The last 7 weeks have been kind of extraordinary, I have to tell you. I don't think I've ever worked so hard. You forget what day it is, right? But it is, somebody told me, enjoy this ride, because South Dakotans are wonderful and wonderful people, and I have found that to be so true. And I have to tell you, I am so beyond hopeful. I am confident. I say, we're in it to win it. I would never, ever have done this if I didn't believe that we would win. And assessing the polling and assessing what people are talking about, this is real. This is real. And every day it becomes more real. And then when you get a great poll like we did this last week, wow. So it really does show a statistical dead heat. So we're within 4 points. It shows we're behind 4 points of our opponent. But actually, once we talk about the positive, we have very positive statements about both Noam's camp and our camp, we won significantly. We jumped up to 48%. So, darn good, right? People tell me, I just want to believe you can win. I just want to believe you can win. And a lot of my Republican friends tell me that, you know, Michelle, I want to go all in. Give me some hope. Give me some belief that you guys have it. And I think we've relied on how much money we've raised, because it's better than, I think, anybody in history, right, folks? And I think we're right on, can we tell that, or is that a no-no? I'm sorry, I'm totally transparent, right? We can talk about how much money we've raised, $1.6 million, I think, and we're on, right? No, I'm just gonna shut up and move on. But we've done very well. So that's been a surrogate, has been how much money we've raised. But now when we have the polling results, I mean, I think that is some great evidence. So, boy, I know you guys want to give me some advice, and I know you want to ask questions. And remember, I've been at this for 7 weeks, right? So what else? Tell me what we need to do to win. Yes, sir.
I have to ask, when you talk about moderate Republican, I talk about liberal and moderate Democrats. And I'm saying, I don't know if there's much of a divide there. But when 88% of Republicans are polled and they said they agree with Donald Trump, I wonder if my Republican friends are really like moderate Democrats. I don't mean to be negative.
No.
Are you really banking on moderate Republicans to put you over the top, or are you banking on a lot of independents out there?
That's a great question. Actually, I don't know who the heck these people are that take the polls when there's 88% that still favor Trump. It's extraordinary to me. Our poll shows a little bit less numbers, I believe. More like a 55% approval rating. That's overall, though. That's Democrats and Republicans. Here's who we're counting on, and I think we're on the right direction. Our polling also showed just that we have more people that are coming to the Sutton side that are Jackley voters than Christie does. I think that's a great indication. Yeah, you bet we need the Jackley voters, and they're coming at us in droves to talk to us about who are you really, what are you really going to do. They feel like, I know you mentioned earlier that you have heard that the Democratic Party is divided, but I sure hear from these Jackley supporters that the Republican Party is divided, because people were so angry at the negative campaigning that she did towards the end, and sort of eviscerated Jackley in a way that probably was a little bit over the top, and they're angry about that. So who do we have to count on to win? You bet. We need those moderate Republicans. I believe that we're going to get them every day. We just started Republicans for Sutton, And we put it out on Facebook. And I know not everybody's on Facebook, but I think it was in the first day we had 80 people that signed a form and gave us their contact information, and that were Republicans. And so that's pretty good, folks. Crossover appeal. And then I just send mass emails every day with a link. Sign up. I know you're a Republican. Be true to yourself. Come out. It's like coming out, right? They go, oh, gee, Michelle, I'm going to vote for you. I'll even give you money. I'm like, oh, you're ready to come out. I've never seen anything like this in my life. I think I was naive about that, but you know, when you have to ask people to put their name on something, and that's a sign of a commitment, to put your name on an invitation to come and send this to all of our friends, that was a challenge. But I mean, I got hardcore Republicans, guys, that came to this fundraiser and were mesmerized by Billy Sutton. They stood in the front row, people I never in my wildest dreams. But there is anger in this country, there's anger in this state. And now that I think I'm paying attention, I didn't know 85% of our legislature were Republicans. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I don't know if everybody knows that. But we need to have a two-party system. And I think that's the thing we're lacking. We've got to get back to a two-party system. And you know, my experience is in the corporate world, but I'll tell you something, in corporations, when I'm hired to come into a company and I look at their culture and I look at their people, if I know that this team's been together for 40 years, there's not a lot of innovation coming out of there. There's not a lot of robust dialogue. There's not a lot of creative thinking. That's one of the first things we do. And we all know in our lives we have to have differences of opinion because you make better choices. That's really what's lacking in our state for sure. But I have just hearing how people are so disenfranchised and disenchanted with this. I heard it, oh my gosh, the last 2 days in Rapid City were just kind of amazing for me to hear how people talk about this. And it's so much from the heart and it's so much from the gut. And I just think that people have hope. I think all of the Democrats have hope. We have 118 candidates, am I right about that? 118, is that the most we've had for a long, long time, right? The Knipe years, right? And the Harvey Woolman years. So I think that there's power in those kinds of numbers. And I've been looking at my friend, the candidate, Kelly, you're so awesome to be here. I see her all the time. She's a fireball and she has got such a shot at winning. So anyway, ask me some more questions. And my campaign staff will answer. You had one, sir. Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're probably never going to get this from anybody else. I know from what I'm hearing that you are always looking for common ground. And what I want to say is, a week ago, the Charles Cook organization met in Colorado Springs, and it turns out that what he said, there's more common ground between them and us. Maybe not in the long term, because they've got some really weird stuff that they'd like to accomplish. But Charles Cook's very words that he is so down on the tariff or trade policy situation, which I think is very important to us here. The second of his three things was the immigration policies, which I believe with the low unemployment in South Dakota and that immigration workers may be supporting the farm economy. The third thing, of course, we would agree with, but wouldn't maybe matter so much to South Dakota, the divisive rhetoric coming out of Washington. So I think as you are with your corporate background and all the corporate people that you know, make sure that they know that, hey, on a lot of this stuff, we're right in line with you.
Thank you, sir. I think that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true. And I think everybody, when you talk about the tariffs, and I mean, we're in an agriculture state, right? And I mean, you know what? The farmers might be sticking with Trump right now, but in October when they sell their crops, I don't think so. When the prices are 20 and 30% less, don't you think? Don't you think? I mean, that is an absolute crisis, and I can't imagine how we can continue to sustain that. And Billy talks about that, both coming from agricultural backgrounds, is that South Dakota farmers and ranchers are going to be the ones who really suffer. And this $12 billion, I don't even know if you can call it a bailout, because that's not what farmers want. Farmers want to earn their markets. They don't want to be restricted. They want to earn their markets. That really is truly a crisis, but I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a lot more similarities. I think people also on the immigration plan as well, they believe the same things. And who was that from?
Charles Cook, that's Heritage Foundation,
Oh, yeah.
Cato Institute, ALEC, and about 5 or 6 other organizations that he controls.
Okay, good to know. I'm getting used to all these things. I know there's a lady in the, you wanted to talk, ma'am.
I want to, do I understand that your campaign is basically positive rather than negative? You know what I mean?
I say our campaign is positive.
I think that's important today.
What she's saying is our campaign going to be positive or going to be negative,
Because
right?
it's so negative. Yeah, we need a positive.
I know, and I think that you can just see, Billy Sutton is perhaps the most positive person that I've ever met, and I don't think has a negative bone in his body, right? I don't think he has a negative
And
bone in his body.
You can point out differences without being negative.
I agree. You can point out differences without being negative, and I think that's really the direction that we're taking.
Good.
We expect to have some challenges, though, don't we? We expect that, because that is what our opponents did in the primary, and we expect that to happen. So, I don't think that we can say that we can't have some kind of rebuttal when we need to and point out the differences, but I don't know. Everybody's so want to return to civility, right?
Yes,
Isn't that what we're all asking for? I appreciate your comments, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Teresa Robbins.
Teresa.
Glad you're here. We'd love to have you more often, just to come and talk. I would like to try to speak for all of the candidates that are here, because I kind of have a big mouth and I can't help myself. There are many times I would feel that we need to intersect and utilize some synergy among our campaigns. We are the ones that are going to try to go to peer with Billy and try to help him every step of the way. If there are ways that we can synergize our efforts, I believe that should be way at the top of the priority list. And I would speak for some of our other candidates that are around. Face-to-face with Billy, probably be a good idea. Discussion with Billy about who we are and what we bring to the table and how our messages can help him. I think we need to talk about. We were at the Yell intern training this last Tuesday, and lots of us got interns assigned that we were thrilled to have to work in partnership with us. We have among us, there are varying ideas about how to utilize our Yell interns most effectively. If your campaign and Tim's campaign might have some of your folks work to mentor some of our interns as well, that might create some synergy. I'm thinking would be good. You have Voter Circle. We are hoping to piggyback on that as well so that we can synergize and identify supporters in concentric rings to build our sphere of influence. We're on that. We have candidate meetings now every 2 weeks where Sioux Empire Unite is our Minnehaha and Lincoln County coalition. We are working very hard together to get our message out there about who we are, what we stand for, and likewise how we support Billy's agenda and Tim Yorkman's agenda. So if we can interface, perhaps the campaign managers attend even with the candidates, that would be okay. I'm just throwing some things out here. We might brainstorm a bit of how we can do even co-fundraisers and come and support back and forth. That is what my message would be.
Well,
please.
thank you. How many are candidates here?
Why don't all the candidates stand up?
Wow.
We have a lot.
Oh, my gosh. Wow, yay, you guys. So, Susie, tell me, is there a meeting of campaign managers? Or could there be?
Absolutely. We're always accessible. Come and see Seth. He's our field director. So
We're on it.
need any help devising things for Yale Fellows to do, I have targeting that I can help you out with. I have other ways of training them. I've got PowerPoints and stuff like that. Again, I helped out with Yale's training, so let me know whatever it is. Thank you.
That's a great idea. I guess I just assume that happens, but it doesn't happen naturally, right?
I think at intervals we can pull ourselves together. That probably helps. That cross dialoguing so that we don't get into silos.
Exactly. And I'd love to learn from all of you. The Sioux Empire Unite, you said, is every 2 weeks?
Yes.
And where do you go?
The 9th and the 16th, or the 23rd, I'm sorry. This week we will be at Hale Library, and I believe is it the 24th after that Hale Library. And then sometimes we meet at Ronning, and then so we're always in the library because we have free access.
Wonderful.
And we have a nice meeting room, so we can and then we share internal emails with each other as well.
Wonderful.
So perhaps a little bit of extra.
I'd love to come. I'd love to, and I honestly, sincerely mean I have a lot to learn from all of you, and I would love to. And I'll be there.
Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you.
Mike Saba's got a question.
Michelle,
Yes, Mike Saba!
I've worked with you before, and you've got so much energy, and you're so you just give so much spirit to people. Anything I've ever seen with you, and that's so great. But a concern I have, one of the reasons that I was excited about this run this time was because of the women's movement and what I saw with the women's movement. The march, the two organizations that were formed, Kelly's been a big part of that, as you know. But what are you going to do? Because I would bet that women last time in the state voted right down the line, 60-70% for Trump, and what are you going to do to get that women's vote? Because I think that might be the key.
Mike, you're really pretty perceptive. Come on, Susie, can't we talk at all about women in our poll?
You don't need to talk about the polling, but you certainly can talk about how Billy is appealing to women and how you are very important.
Yes, there we go. There we have it. There's the talking points, right? So women are really key. They are. I mean, Mike, that's absolutely true. And we have a lot of tremendous support coming from women. The folks in Rapid City told me that is absolutely critical, and also asked me if that's why Billy chose a woman. I said, no, he chose me for my qualifications, of course, and that we're running against a woman. She hasn't made as big a deal out of that, has she? Being the first, potentially. Has she? I haven't been hearing much about that, but I have to tell you, I mean, obviously I've been a big supporter of every women's movement. I have so many mentees, I don't know what to do. I've been a mentor to so many young women here in Sioux Falls and across the state when I was at USD. I'm open to more ideas in terms of how we can appeal to women. I think there's a lot of women that do. I mean, my big joke is that, geez, I'm not sure South Dakota's ready for their first female governor, but they're sure as heck ready for their second lieutenant governor. Dying. Yeah. What do you think, Mike? What can we do? What can we do to appeal to more females? What kind of ideas do you have in your campaigns? Because I think that we do show that we have a strong appeal to females.
Well, I think you have to re-energize that March group of women.
Yep.
They had so much energy after the last election, and there's so much potential there. I mean, to change 10% of their votes and we win. It's that simple, and I think to continue to work with the women's movement and to continue to get more women to be more outspoken on these issues, and talk more about women's issues, what's important.
Absolutely.
And don't let people get you into the single issue kind of point on that.
Yeah, the whole right to life.
Single issues are.
Exactly. No, I
just think it's so important. And get those young women out to vote.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, getting younger people out to vote in particular, because I do think that Billy has a sweet spot with the 18 to 35-year-olds as well. When you watch him speak, you identify with him. You've got young kids and you've got a wife that's working, and you're working really hard for something. I think getting out the vote issue is a big issue. But Kelly, what do you think? You were a leader of our Women's March. Give us some advice about that. How can we get that spirit back with the female voter?
Actually, recently I got an email about
having a Women's Day on, I think it's August 26th, to kind of reignite that fire within the women in our community. I'm not sure where that has gone, but I think that, like Mike said, kind of reigniting that feeling of women uniting and coming together, and that we do have a voice in this. I'm really trying to personally cater to like the 18 to 35-year-old crowd, because I think that that is going to help me win the vote or win the election, and that does include young women. So I'm just personally trying to stand strong as a young woman in this race. I think you can do that as well as a young woman.
As an old woman in this race.
No, but I think as a younger woman, you can appeal to women of my age and younger and say, like, I have a voice, I'm using my voice, this is what I've done in my life, and this is how, you know, this is what you can do. And this, you can actually make a difference in our state if you stand up and use your voice as a woman.
You know, that's
a
good point.
I found my voice through the Women's March. I mean, I'm running for office because of the Women's March and the Women's.
And I do think that our platform is very appealing to women. I mean, women care about things like health care for their family, right? Yes. And the Medicaid reform issues that we really have got to continue to face. I think our platform is probably a lot more favorable to women. But I do think my background for young women, they have been so, they want to know they can stay here and make a living. And I have had an absolute fabulous career here in South Dakota. And I know that I get asked to speak about that in particular, that you can stay here and have a lot of different kinds of opportunities. So I
think we need to do a GOTV for young people and young women. Kristen?
Yeah. I'm Kristen Hayward. I work for Planned Parenthood, and I think that's the exact message. And I think I just had a breakfast prior to this, and I think that's exactly what this is. This is about people running amongst people, right? So people in this room, including Kelly and including my husband, who just had to run out and take care of our dogs, is running and has no political experience whatsoever. Just has a brain and has some passion and wants to run and says, I need to say something. And Teresa, same thing. It's like, none of these people have been in politics before, but it's time for regular people to have regular voices, because that's what we are. There's no above, there's no below, there's just people. And I think Michelle is doing an excellent, excellent job of that, and I think Billy does the same thing. I think he just has this sense of calm. We had a fundraiser at our house, and the second he wheeled down that hallway, everything chilled out in the house. He has that common presence, and if you haven't gotten to meet him yet, you need to do so. So let's just talk as people, stay on the same level. Don't pretend like our legislators and the people that are running our offices are any smarter or better than any of the rest of us.
Yeah, amen, sister. You are so good. Everywhere I go, she is there.
Yes, I am. I think, was it not 43 women running? Yeah. Okay, if you want to know how to change the conversation, look, there's Tony Miller back there. She's changing the conversation, right, Tony? It's the women that were sitting at home watching the horror show unfold that said, we cannot tolerate this anymore. And we stood up no matter what our age, no matter what our experience, and we were inspired. And Lead that stood up, frankly, we are doing that to change the conversation by simply walking the neighborhoods and encouraging people.
Okay, Boots has a question here.
Thank you.
My horror show, I don't know if you were talking there watching The Handmaid's Tale or what.
I'm Boots. I'm a board member for Sioux Falls Pride. I serve our LGBT community. And one of the things we've had to really fight is all of this bathroom bill crap.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, we've had do guard, be moderate, and be realistic on that.
Right.
Talking to my nephew, realizing there's humans underneath all this scare tactic crap that's going on. With Noam, that's going to be a real worry. With Billy, I don't have that kind of a worry. But it's also something where you need to pull in those conservative and moderate votes of the LGBT community as well. There's still a lot of straight ticket party voters within the queer community, and you need to have a way to still appeal to them as well. So don't leave out the LGBTQ in this campaign.
You bet, and I appreciate you saying that. I gotta say, I was on the job 3 days, and my first event was the Pride event for Sioux Falls, where 10,000 people came. And that was I love Billy's line, in South Dakota, you should be free to love who you want to love. And I just thought that was the best way to talk about that message. I just could not believe how many people came to our booth and just are so looking for something different. I mean, it was overwhelming to me how much support that we got at that event. So then I went to the peer event, and they had 150 people come out to the Ramkota, and it was just that same level of passion and that same desire to change the status quo. It was actually, I think, such an important group, and I know that Billy has talked about that he's probably very moderate as well, and he believes that is it a solution looking for a problem? And also just believes that those things can best be handled locally, right? In their own community, facing what they face. But I so appreciate your saying that, and I am such a believer in your community. And I gotta tell you, those two events were some of the highlights of my campaign so far.
And the biggest deal to our community is it's none of the business of the state and really the business of the county. When you get into the demographics of like 14 to 35, that stuff belongs at home, not in politics.
You better believe it, Boots. I'm writing that down. That stuff belongs at home, not in politics.
I got a question over here.
Hi, Michelle. Not a question, just a comment, if you will. Michelle is my neighbor and good friend, and I see her almost daily, so she knows about this button that I wear. It says impeach Trump. I've been wearing it for 9 months. I live downtown, and that's a little risky because you run into all kinds of people on Phillips Avenue, where I spend a lot of time. So I just wanted to make a comment about what you've been talking about. I think I've given away about $900 worth of these buttons. They're $5 a piece, and that's my contribution. But I think 80% of those people have been young women that have asked for it. If they come up to me and say, I love that button, they get it. Been carried 2 or 3 in my class. So it's been an interesting experiment, and I'm just amazed at the number of young people, right, Kelly, who have asked for this button and wear it. I see it on their purses. They can't wear it up there on a job downtown, but you see it. Just thought you might be interested in it. I see the movement.
I see what you're saying, Arnie, too, and I know, back to Mike's comment and your comment earlier, I mean, anybody that I know, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, what's going on nationally on the women's issues, it's pretty tough to stomach. And that's why I also think we ride that through right now, right? I was just reading how many Democratic females are getting elected. It's kind of extraordinary, right? I mean, don't you feel like the timing is right?
It's about time.
Yay! One more question.
Hi, thank you. I'm not a candidate, but I am finishing my 3rd term as a House of Representatives. Had health problems, so I've been to a Democratic Forum for a year. It's good to be back. Not all relevant. I'd like to give you some advice.
I'd love to take
After
some.
I say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I have Republican friends, some in high places, some in not so high. The word corruption is one that is not found helpful, and this is for Susie behind me too, by Republicans who are involved in some way in what's going on. Now, we know there is, but it's hard for them to accept that label if they themselves have not been corrupt. And in, not this last session, but the one before, I saw grown men in tears over being accused as if, I mean, these were representatives or senators. How can they say that I've done something like that? So I guess this goes along, not to, it's more specific to the whole positive campaigning. What is it that you and Billy bring? And of course, we could make the list. And make it, well, you know that because you do the vision marketing thing. But I'd stay away from the word corrupt. The point's been made. There are other words. And
yep.
and talk about what's offered here. I'm very heartened that we're seeing the Republican votes. I don't know anybody who likes your opponent.
Say that one more time.
They're looking for reasons. It makes it hard. They feel like this accusation is the only thing that Billy's running on. So
Oh, I
leave it
see.
at that.
Okay, I understand exactly what you're saying,
They
so,
run him
yep.
over. But
You're,
if you're calling them corrupt, or there are probably some other words. So it's more about what Billy offers, an alternative.
yeah, we talked a lot about that word corruption in our campaign, and actually, people were very concerned that corruption is a big issue in South Dakota, but it's really about transparency and accountability in government and status quo.
Yeah, and it's about what Billy's bringing.
Absolutely, what he
Not
is.
so much about what's good is going to come when he's there.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for saying that. No, that's a very, very, very good point. Thank you. Thank you.
We have one more last question.
You know, I think she has a good point, but I think Billy said it best at McCover days. He started out with a little story about his son and a truck getting stuck, and he used that word, and it was positive, and yet it was graphic. He said, you know, we're stuck in this state. It's not nasty, it's not derogatory, but we are stuck in so many ways. And what's happened in the past with one party, with corruption, without saying it. I think Billy said it. He said it best.
Stuck is another, we're going to add that word.
And I want to say, we've been waiting for this for a long time.
You try to get the microphone away from a bunch of former legislators.
And teachers.
And teachers. Thank you,
Thank
Michelle.
you so much.
We don't come up here to entertain you. We come up here to inform you.